I'm dying.
I saw what waits. I felt it. And I wouldn't wish that darkness on anyone. But I also saw the light. I saw what's possible, what's waiting if we choose it. And it's more beautiful, more perfect, than anything you've ever dreamed of.
Welcome to this eye-opening experience. What you're about to hear could change everything you think you know about life, death, and what lies beyond. If you're ready to witness a testimony that will leave you questioning everything, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any part of this incredible journey. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear this message. Trust me, they won't want to miss it.
I need you to listen closely to what I'm about to tell you. Not just with your ears, but with your heart. My testimony isn't some far-off tale meant to entertain or thrill you. It's real. I lived through it, or maybe I should say, I barely survived it. Have you ever thought about your last breath? Is it just darkness, an endless void? Or is there something waiting for us? Something terrifying, something glorious? I used to think I had plenty of time to figure that out. But life doesn't always wait for you to be ready. It all started so simply. A fever. That's all it was at first. Nothing to worry about, right? Just a minor illness I thought I could shake off with some rest. But the fever didn't go away. It clung to me, dragging me deeper into exhaustion. Then the chills came, an unnatural cold that felt like it wasn't just on my skin but inside my bones, creeping into my soul. By the time I realized something was really wrong, it was too late. My body failed me. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, unable to move, unable to scream for help. And then, in that moment, everything changed. I felt myself slipping away, like someone had pulled the ground out from under me. My chest stopped rising. My heartbeat faded, but I was still there, watching, hearing, feeling. I saw my body lying lifeless on the bed, and for the first time, I realized the truth. You are more than flesh and blood. You have a soul. And when your body fails, your soul doesn't just vanish. The room started to shift. Shadows stretched across the walls, growing darker and darker until they swallowed everything. A force stronger than anything I've ever known yanked me downward. I screamed, but no one could hear me. I reached out, but there was nothing to grab onto. I was being pulled into a place I never thought I'd go. I always thought that word was exaggerated, a tool to scare people. But it's not. It's real. It's waiting. Do you feel that chill crawling up your spine? That's because some part of you knows this too. Deep down, you've wondered, what if I'm not ready? What if this life isn't as safe as it feels? I want to tell you everything I saw, everything I heard. But I need you to stay with me because it only gets darker from here. I'll take you to the moment when I faced the very thing I never believed could exist. And I'll show you how close you might be to it too, without even realizing it. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. The moment when the shadows first came for me. Let's step into the descent into shadows. The descent into shadows. I was pulled into a darkness that I can't fully describe. It wasn't like closing your eyes at night. This darkness was alive. It pressed against me, wrapping around me like it had been waiting for me all along. At first, I tried to fight it. I told myself, this isn't real. Wake up. But I couldn't wake up because I wasn't asleep. I was fully aware, more aware than I'd ever been. Every thought, every memory, every mistake, it all hit me at once. Have you ever felt that sinking dread when you know you've forgotten something important? Multiply that by 1,000. That's what I felt. It was like all the chances I'd ever been given to change, to do better, were flashing before me. And I realized, with horrifying clarity, that I had wasted them. I know what you're thinking, but why didn't you just call out for help? I tried. I screamed until my voice felt like it was tearing apart. But the sound didn't go anywhere. It stayed trapped inside me, swallowed by the dark. And then I heard them, the voices. They weren't loud, but they were everywhere. Whispering, accusing, laughing. Did you really think you could escape this? This is what you chose. You knew, and you ignored it. The words cut deep because they were true. I started to fall. At least, it felt like falling. I couldn't see where I was going, but I could feel the pull, dragging me faster and faster. My mind was racing. Was this it? Was this where I'd stay forever? Then I saw it, a faint glow in the distance. For a second, I thought it might be hope. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't light at all. It was fire. The heat hit me like a wave, even before I could see what was ahead. The screams grew louder, blending into a symphony of agony. And in that moment, I knew exactly where I was headed. You've probably heard stories about hell, flames, torment, eternal suffering. I thought those were just stories too. But they're not. Hell is real. And I was falling straight into it. I don't want you to think I'm telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because I've been there. I felt the terror. I saw the regret. And I don't want you to feel that. As I got closer to that fire, I realized something else. This wasn't just a punishment. It was justice. Every choice I'd made, every chance I'd ignored, it had led me here. Do you think you're safe? That there's still time to make things right? Maybe there is. But are you sure? Stay with me because this is where my story gets darker. I thought the fire was the end, but it was only the beginning. The true terror was waiting just beyond it. I'll take you there, to the threshold of death, where I faced the unthinkable. Where everything I thought I knew was ripped apart. Let me show you what happens when you come face to face with eternity. The threshold of death. When I hit the edge of that fire, I thought I'd seen the worst of it. I couldn't have been more wrong. That's when I saw him. A figure stepped out of the flames. His shape was human, but everything about him was wrong. His skin looked like molten rock, glowing in some places and blackened in others. His eyes were hollow, just endless pits that seemed to pull you in and strip you bare. He didn't speak, but somehow I knew who he was. He didn't need to introduce himself. He was death. Have you ever felt someone's presence before they even step into a room? This wasn't like that. It was heavier, suffocating. It was as if every fear I'd ever had came alive and stood right in front of me. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. Death didn't need chains to hold me. His gaze alone pinned me in place. Then he reached out, and I knew this wasn't just an encounter. This was judgment. Have you ever wondered if you've done enough in your life? If you've made the right choices? I didn't have to wonder anymore. In that moment, I knew. I hadn't. He grabbed me, and the world around me twisted and cracked. Flames erupted from the ground, and the air grew so thick it felt like I was breathing fire. But the worst part wasn't the heat. It was the silence that followed. Because in that silence, I heard everything I'd tried to bury. Every selfish thought. Every cruel word. Every opportunity I'd ignored to do good. It all came back, one by one, louder than the screams around me. And then I saw it, something I'll never forget. There was a door in the distance. Not a real door, but an opening, a chance. It was surrounded by light, beautiful and pure. And I could feel what was on the other side. Peace, love, everything I'd been searching for my whole life. But I couldn't reach it. Death was holding me back, dragging me away. And I knew why. That door wasn't for me. Not anymore. How does that make you feel? Knowing there's something so close, something perfect, but you can't have it because of the choices you've made? I wanted to plead, to beg for another chance. But death doesn't negotiate. He doesn't argue. He just takes. I was falling again, faster this time. The fire disappeared, replaced by something even darker. The air grew colder, heavier. And then I realized, this wasn't an end. It was a beginning. Where I was going now wasn't just a place. It was a punishment. If you think you're ready to face whatever comes next, let me ask you this. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Because the place I was falling into wasn't meant for anyone. But so many of us go there anyway. Not because we want to, but because we choose to. Stay with me. I'm going to show you what was waiting at the bottom. I'm going to take you to the abyss calls. The abyss calls. When I landed, I thought I'd hit rock bottom. But there was no bottom. There was only more falling, deeper, darker, colder. The air was thick, like it didn't want me to breathe. Every time I tried to take a breath, it felt like something was clawing at my throat, dragging me closer to whatever waited below. Then I heard it, the sound. It wasn't a scream or a voice. It was something in between, like millions of people crying out at once but never quite forming words. The closer I got, the louder it became, until it wasn't just something I heard, it was something I felt. It was inside me, rattling my bones and pressing against my chest. I tried to block it out, but how do you block out something that's everywhere? And then I saw them. Shapes moving in the darkness, barely visible. Some were crawling, others dragging themselves along, but none of them were standing. Their bodies looked broken, twisted, like they'd been burned and bent in ways no body should ever be. They were reaching out, not for me, but for anything. It was like they were desperate to escape, but there was no escape. Just endless darkness and endless pain. Have you ever felt completely alone? Like no one could hear you, no one could help you? Multiply that feeling until it's all you know. That's what they were feeling. That's what I was feeling. The whispers started again, but this time, they weren't just whispers. They were voices, clear and sharp, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. You belong here. This is what you chose. Did you really think you'd get away with it? They weren't lying. Deep down, I knew they were right. Every chance I'd ignored, every time I'd said, "I'll do better tomorrow," had led me here. And now, tomorrow wasn't an option. But then something strange happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a light, a faint glow in the distance. It wasn't warm or welcoming. It was cold and harsh, like a spotlight shining on someone who didn't want to be seen. And it was coming closer. I tried to move away from it, but I couldn't. My legs wouldn't work. My body wouldn't respond. It was like I was rooted to the spot, forced to face whatever was coming. When the light reached me, everything stopped. The voices went silent, the shapes disappeared, and all I could feel was the weight of the light pressing down on me. And then I heard the voice. Not like the whispers, not like the screams. This voice was different. It was loud, but it didn't need to be. It wasn't just in my ears, it was in my head, my chest, my entire being. "Do you see now?" it said. "Do you understand?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't even think. All I could do was nod. "Good," the voice said, "because this is your last chance." And just like that, I was pulled out of the abyss. It wasn't like being saved. It wasn't relief. It was more like being dragged into the light, forced to face the truth I'd been avoiding my entire life. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew one thing: I wasn't safe yet. I'm going to take you there, to the moment when the warning came. To the moment when I realized what I had to do, and how close I came to missing it. Let me show you the warning. The warning. When the light pulled me out of the abyss, I thought the worst was over. I thought I'd been spared, but I wasn't safe. Not yet. I found myself standing in an endless void. There was no up, no down, no sky, no ground. Just me and the light. It wasn't blinding, but it saw through me, like it could strip away every mask, every lie, every excuse I had ever told myself. Then the voice spoke again. "You say you believe, but look at your life. Look at what you've done with the chances I gave you." Every word hit me like a weight. My mind raced, trying to find a defense, a reason, anything to explain why I hadn't done better. But the truth was right there in front of me. I'd been selfish, lazy, hypocritical. I told myself I was good enough, that I had time to fix things later. But now, later didn't exist. "Do you understand what's at stake?" the voice asked. "Do you? Have you ever stopped to really think about it? Not just the life you're living right now, but what comes after." Because I hadn't. I thought I had, but I hadn't. The voice continued, sharper now. "You've been warned before. You've felt it in your heart, seen it in the lives of others, but you ignored it. You turned away, thinking you could wait, thinking you could cheat the system. But there is no cheating eternity." My chest felt heavy, like my own guilt was crushing me. I wanted to cry, to scream, but no sound came out. "I'm giving you one last chance," the voice said. "Not because you deserve it, but because of grace. What you do with it is up to you. But hear this, you will not get another." The words burned into me. They weren't just a warning. They were a command, a choice I had to make. I think about that moment every single day now. About how close I came to losing everything, forever. But let me ask you this. What would you do if you were given one last chance? Because maybe you're being given that chance right now. Maybe this is your warning. Do you feel it? That pull in your chest, that voice in your mind saying, "Wake up. Don't wait." The light started to fade, and for the first time, I felt hope. I could see something new on the horizon, not darkness, but something else. Something I wasn't sure I deserved to see. Let me take you there. To the moment I saw what could be waiting for all of us. To the glimpse of paradise. The glimpse of paradise. I was still floating, barely holding on, when the change happened. The darkness I had just been pulled through started to lift. I could feel it. The air felt lighter, warmer. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe without pain. And then I saw it. At first, it was just a faint glow. I wasn't sure if it was real or just something my mind wanted to see. But the glow grew until it filled everything around me. It wasn't like light from a lamp or a fire. It was different. Pure. Like the light came from inside everything, not just from above or around. I know what you're thinking. What did you see? Where was it? Let me tell you. There were colors there I can't explain, things I don't have words for. The ground, if you could call it that, wasn't like earth. It felt alive, soft, and somehow stable, like it was welcoming me. And the air? It wasn't just clean, it was refreshing. Every breath felt like the first fresh breath I'd ever taken. I couldn't help it. I wanted to run. I wanted to be there, to stay there forever. But then I saw the people. At first, I thought they were just figures in the distance, but as I got closer, I realized they were real. There was joy in the way they moved, in the way they looked at each other. I could see love, real love. No shame, no fear, just pure, perfect connection. And the sounds, I can't describe it well, but it wasn't just quiet. It was peaceful, almost like the air itself was singing a song of life. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever felt peace so deep it made you question if you'd ever truly known peace before? This was that. But I knew I couldn't stay. Not yet. It was like something inside me told me that I wasn't done. Not finished. I hadn't made the right choices. I hadn't learned enough. And then came the voice again. This is what waits. But it's not for you, not yet. You still have time. You still have a chance. I wanted to stay. I wanted to beg. But I couldn't. Something was pulling me back. Pulling me away from everything I thought was perfect. And just like that, I was falling again. I could see the light behind me, fading. It was like it was calling me, begging me to turn back. But I couldn't. I had to go. This is where it gets heavy. This is where the choice was made for me, and I didn't get to choose. Have you ever felt like something good was slipping away from you, and there was nothing you could do to hold on? That was me. In that moment, I realized that paradise was waiting for me, but only if I truly changed. I want to ask you something. If you had the chance, right now, to see what you've been missing, would you fight for it? Or would you let it slip away? Because the reality is, you have that choice now. You still have time. And the question is, what will you do with it? I'll tell you this though. I wasn't ready, but I was about to get another chance. And that's what brings me to the next part of my story, the resurrection. Stay with me. You won't want to miss what happens next. The resurrection. I thought I was gone. Finished. Done. When I left the glimpse of paradise, I didn't know what was waiting for me. I thought maybe the pull would drag me back to the abyss. Or maybe I'd stay lost, floating in that in-between place forever. But then, something happened. It wasn't a jolt or a flash. It was subtle, like a breath, a spark I didn't expect. Suddenly, I felt weight again, like I was being placed back into something solid. My chest tightened, my fingers tingled, and I realized I was back in my body. But here's the thing, I wasn't the same. When my eyes opened, the room was chaos. People were screaming. Some were crying. Others were frozen, staring at me like they'd seen a ghost. And maybe they had. I sat up, gasping for air, like I'd been underwater for hours. My throat burned, my muscles ached, but there was one thing I couldn't ignore, the overwhelming hunger. I was starving. The first words out of my mouth were, "I'm hungry." That's all I could think to say. But those two words turned the room upside down. People ran from me. Some fell to the floor, praying. I didn't understand what was happening at first. Then I saw my mother. She was on her knees, tears running down her face, shouting, "Thank you, God. Thank you for bringing him back." Her voice was shaking, her hands trembling. She looked like she'd been through a war. And in a way, she had. It wasn't until later that I learned how long I'd been gone. They told me I had been dead for hours. They were preparing to bury me. My body had been cold, lifeless. The doctors had left. The neighbors had gathered. And my family, they were already grieving. But I came back. And I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I wasn't supposed to waste a second more. I was given another chance, not because I deserved it, but because I had work to do. Let me ask you something. If you were given one more chance, just one, to fix everything, to make things right, would you take it? Or would you let it slip through your fingers? Because that's what this is for me. The second chance. A warning. A responsibility. When I stood up from that bed, I felt something I can't explain. An urgency, a fire inside me that wouldn't let me stop. I'm here now telling you this because I know someone watching needs to hear it. Maybe it's you. Maybe you've been ignoring the signs, thinking you have time. But do you? Do you really? This isn't just my story. It's yours too. You might not have been through what I've been through, but the choices you make now, they matter. And now, I need to share one last thing with you. What I saw, what I felt when I came back, wasn't just about the terror I escaped. It was about the hope I was shown. About what waits for all of us if we're willing to change. Let me take you there, to the moment where it all comes together. To the final call that could change everything for you. Let me share the final plea.
Wow, that was an experience like no other. Now, it's your turn. What did you learn from this story? Do you feel that pull to make a change? Leave a prayer or your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this impacted you. If this story has opened your eyes, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with those who need it most. Together, let's spread the truth and make sure we don't wait until it's too late. Let's keep this conversation going. What will you choose today?